All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating and honestly pretty provocative theory from our source material. It connects two huge global events into what it claims is a single coordinated strategy. So let's just jump right in.
So the whole thing kicks off with this really chilling idea. You've probably heard the saying, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Well, this theory argues that in the spring of 2026, the patterns didn't just rhyme, they converged into something terrifying. The idea is that these two seemingly separate events were a sign of a whole new kind of conflict.
Okay, so let's start with part one, an invisible battlefield. Now, the first piece of this puzzle is the attack on Donald Trump at a press gala. But, and this is crucial, the theory we're exploring today says this was way more than just a physical assault. It was actually the opening shot on a completely invisible battlefield.
Yeah, the source just completely reframes the whole incident. It wasn't just an act of violence, they call it a digital rupture. Think about that. The argument is that the real damage wasn't physical at all. It was the traumatic shockwave it sent through our global information network. That's modern warfare, right? Something designed specifically to destabilize and distract, but on a massive, massive scale.
And, this leads to a whole new idea of what a combatant even is. The source doesn't use the term lone wolf. Instead, it talks about a radicalized technical expert. Now, this isn't just about what someone believes, it's about what they can do. The theory suggests the person who did this was basically an asset, like a packet of data activated by code. And their primary weapon? It was a story, a narrative, crafted to get a very, very specific strategic result. Okay, so if the attack on Trump was the first shock, the source is really clear that it didn't just happen in a vacuum. It was only one part of what it calls a double blow. To really get the full picture, we have to look at what happened just before it.
And this is where the theory really starts to pick up steam. Check out this timeline. The source zooms in on this 21-day period, saying it's strategically crucial. First, you have the announcement of Prime Minister Netanyahu's cancer diagnosis, which, sends a huge signal of instability in a key region. Then, exactly 21 days later, the attack on Trump. The whole point here is that this isn't just a coincidence, it's a sequence, and it's timed perfectly.
But why? Why would these two things be connected at all? Well, the narrative argues that to understand it, you have to rewind the clock by a century. It suggests that these modern digital shocks are basically lighting a fuse that was laid down way back during the colonial era. We're talking about deals like the Sykes-Picot Agreement, the one that literally drew the borders of the modern Middle East and, in the process, created these deep-seated grievances that have been simmering for generations.
And this right here, this is the absolute core of the whole theory. See, in the past, power meant drawing lines on a map, right? Controlling territory. But according to this source, power today is all about controlling things with lines of code. The idea is that those old, century-old grievances are being activated again. Not with ink and paper this time, but with digital weapons and powerful narratives.
Okay, so let's recap. We've got a signal of instability and a massive global shock. But what was the actual target? What was all this for? Well, according to this theory, it wasn't a person. It wasn't even a country. It was a number, and a very, very big one at that. $6 trillion. That number, according to the source, is the motive for everything. See, right at the exact moment all this chaos was unfolding, incredibly delicate negotiations were happening. These negotiations were about Iran and its allies getting access to this sum in Iraqi assets. I mean, a deal that big? It would have completely redrawn the economic and political map of the entire region. A total game changer.
So, how does it all fit together? Well, the source claims they create something it calls a veto point. It's like a strategic moment where just the right amount of chaos can stop something huge from happening. In this case, the Netanyahu diagnosis is the internal signal, chaos at home. The Trump attack is the massive global distraction. Put them together and you've got this pincer movement perfectly designed to just slam the brakes on those debt talks.
So the end game here, as laid out in this story, wasn't about winning some kind of traditional battle. It was about creating a permanent stalemate. By manufacturing chaos at the exact moment a massive financial deal was about to close, the goal was to lock all the key players into this perpetual chokehold. That way, the existing power structure could never really be challenged.
All right, so let's pull all these threads together now. The source presents this unified theory it calls the pattern of the crown. And it's where the signal, the shock, and the target all converge into one. Pretty chilling strategy for the 21st century.
And here it is, the final thesis, what the source calls strategic convergence.
It's the simple but powerful idea that these two world-shaking events weren't random at all. They were a coordinated play, a move designed to hold on to geopolitical control by weaponizing information and hitting a supercritical financial pressure point at the absolute perfect time.
And that leaves us with this final, really provocative question from the source material. It's asking us to think about a world where the most important battlefields are completely invisible, fought with narratives and algorithms. I mean, if there's any truth to this theory, the question isn't if another one of these strategic chokeholds will be applied, but where, and what will the next veto point be? Definitely something to think about.